Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Well, today we're tackling something pretty ancient and honestly a little mind-blowing.
Definitely mind-blowing.
Yeah, we're talking about the Gayatri Mantra.
Ooh.
Have you ever heard of this one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you might have come across in yoga class or maybe in some, I don't know, new agey kind of circles.
Yeah, definitely.
But what's really fascinating to me is that there's actually a growing body of research
Mhm.
suggesting that this ancient chant might actually have some pretty powerful effects on the brain.
Oh, yeah. There's some really interesting stuff coming out now.
Like, we're talking about things like improving focus, memory, even anxiety.
Yeah, it's wild.
So for this deep dive, we've got ancient texts, we've got scientific studies,
Right.
we've even got some surprising pop culture references to unpack.
Can't wait for that.
So let's see if we can separate fact from fiction and see what we can all learn. Okay, so first things first. What exactly is the Gayatri Mantra?
Well, imagine a sound so old, it goes back over 10,000 years to the Rig Veda,
Wow.
which is, a collection of sacred hymns in Hinduism.
Yeah.
And this mantra is dedicated to Saviti,
That's-
sun deity,
Yeah.
who represents, like, the source of life
Oh, interesting.
and inspiration.
I see.
And it's still chanted today
Wow.
in, like, traditional practices like the Upanayana.
Topanayana.
Yeah, it's the initiation ceremony for Vedic study.
Oh, wow. So like a really long lineage there.
Totally. It's like a thread
Mm-hmm.
connecting generations through sound.
10,000 years. That's a lot of generations.
Yeah, it puts things in perspective.
It really does. But okay, let's get practical here. What does it actually sound like?
Well, like many mantras, the power is said to be in the vibration of the sound itself.
Yeah,
But of course, meaning adds another layer.
of course.
So you can actually find the Sanskrit in our show notes.
Okay.
But to really get the essence, let's look at a translation.
Okay.
One that really resonates with me is, we meditate on that desirable effulgence of God, Savitri, who will rouse forth our insights.
Okay, so it's about like connecting to a higher power for wisdom and insight.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it. But I'm sure our listener is wondering, where's the science in all of this? Does chanting this mantra actually, do something to the brain?
Right. Well, you might be surprised by this.
Okay.
Several studies actually suggest that chanting the Gayatri Mantra might enhance cognitive function, especially attention and memory.
Really?
Yeah, those things we all could use a little more of.
In today's world, absolutely.
Yeah, especially these days.
So hold on, are you saying that simply chanting these ancient sounds could make me, like, sharper?
Well, researchers are definitely looking into that possibility. There's this one study, they focused on athletes,
Okay.
and the findings were pretty wild.
Oh.
They saw improvements not only in attention and memory, but also anxiety levels went down.
Wait, anxiety too, that's huge. For athletes?
Oh, absolutely.
But, like, anyone, really?
For sure.
How did they measure all of this? Did they, like, have people hooked up to brain scanners while they were chanting?
Not quite, although that would be amazing to see.
Right, yeah.
They use different tests
Got it.
to measure, like, different aspects of cognitive function.
I see.
Like, how quickly people could process information, how well they could focus,
Right.
and how much they could hold in their short-term memory.
Okay, so they weren't just going off of how people felt. They had data.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so interesting.
And what's even more interesting is that in one study,
Yeah.
they compared chanting the Gayatri to just reciting poetry.
Oh, interesting.
Both activities improved attention.
Okay.
But the Gayatri Mantra had a greater impact, especially for women.
Wow, that's really interesting. So it's not just about reciting anything. There's something specific
Yeah,
about the Gayatri Mantra.
exactly.
So is it the sound itself, the rhythm, the meaning, or some combination?
That's a great question.
It's a big one.
And it's one that researchers are still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that the Gayatri Mantra seems to tap into something powerful, something that can enhance our mental capabilities.
It's like ancient brain hacking.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay, so speaking of unexpected things, when you mentioned pop culture earlier,
Yeah.
my mind went straight to yoga studios and meditation retreats.
Right. the usual suspect.
But I have a feeling it's a little more diverse than that.
Oh, you have no idea. You remember that show, Battlestar Galactica?
The remake? Oh, yeah. Loved that show.
The theme song actually incorporates elements of the Gayatri Mantra.
No way.
Yeah.
Seriously. I've been humming an ancient Vedic hymn this whole time.
You got it.
That is wild.
And it goes even further than that.
Really?
Kate Bush.
Kate Bush.
Kate Bush. She has a song that includes a version of the mantra, too.
Okay, now that's officially mind-blowing. So we've got sci-fi, we've got Kate Bush. This is getting interesting.
Oh, and we can't forget about the George Harrison statue.
Oh, yeah. What's the story with that one?
So there's this statue of him in Liverpool.
Okay.
And on the back of his belt buckle, engraved, the Gayatri Mantra.
What? Seriously?
Yep. It's like this hidden thread
Yeah.
connecting these totally different worlds.
It makes you wonder who else might be secretly chanting the Gayatri Mantra.
Right.
But, okay, back to the basics for a second.
Sure.
Is there just one Gayatri Mantra? Or are there many?
Ah, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because in Hinduism, there are actually many Gayatri mantras.
Oh, wow.
Each one is dedicated to a different deity.
Okay, so, like, there's one for Vishnu, Krishna, Shiva.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like a whole universe of Gayatri mantras,
totally.
each with its own vibe.
Totally.
Okay, things are getting really interesting now.
I told you.
But let's refocus for a second.
All right.
Back to the classic Gayatri Mantra. We talked about the history, the potential cognitive benefits, even its pop culture cameos.
Yeah.
But the million-dollar question,
And the big one.
how does it actually work? What's going on in our brains when we chant these sounds?
Right. We need to get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, we do.
Well, there are a few theories floating around out there.
Okay.
One idea is that this rhythmic chanting, it stimulates specific brain regions,
Okay.
potentially improving blood flow, and even neural connections.
So it's like a workout for your brain, but with sound.
I like that, yeah.
I'm into it.
But then there are those anxiety-reducing effects
Right.
that are found in some studies.
How does that all connect to cognitive performance?
Well, some research suggests that chanting has this calming quality, almost meditative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that might actually be linked to reducing anxiety,
Okay.
which could then indirectly benefit cognitive function.
So it's like clearing out the mental clutter so your brain can focus better.
Yeah, exactly. When we're less stressed, our minds are just free to work more efficiently.
Makes sense. Are there any specific parts of the brain that are involved?
Researchers are still trying to map it all out,
Sure.
but some studies point to the amygdala.
That's the fear and stress center, right?
That's the one.
So the calming effects of chanting might be like turning down the volume on the amygdala?
Exactly.
So the Gayatri Mantra, it's like a sonic hack for our brains,
I love that. A sonic hack.
helping us get into this calmer, more focused state.
Yeah, and it speaks to the potential of these ancient practices to teach us so much about how our minds work.
It's amazing to think that something so old could have such a profound impact.
Yeah.
But, it's important to acknowledge that the Gayatri Mantra isn't just about boosting brain power.
Totally.
It has, like, this deep cultural and spiritual significance within Hinduism.
Absolutely. For centuries, it's been a tool for spiritual growth and connecting with the divine.
Right. It's a reminder that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we get into a little bit of a debate.
Okay.
Some people see the Gayatri Mantra as purely religious, while others believe it has, like, a universal power
Right.
that goes beyond any one belief system.
It's a fascinating conversation for sure.
It is.
And, regardless of where you stand on the spiritual aspect,
Yeah.
there's no denying the impact it's had on human culture for literally thousands of years.
Absolutely. But before we get too philosophical,
Right.
let's talk about a controversy that you might not expect.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
It involves the Gayatri Mantra and the film Mohabbateen.
Wait, Mohabbateen,
Yeah,
the Bollywood movie?
the one and only.
What does that have to do with the Gayatri Mantra?
Well, the film actually sparked a bit of controversy
Really?
over its use of the mantra. Some people felt like it was disrespectful to use such a sacred hymn in a secular context,
I see.
while others saw it as a way of sharing this beautiful tradition with a wider audience.
Right.
It definitely brings up some interesting questions.
It does. It really makes you think about the power of this mantra.
And how it can evoke such strong emotions, even in a Bollywood movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you wonder what other unexpected controversies or debates might be out there surrounding this ancient chant.
It really does.
But that's something for you, dear listener.
Yes, listener.
To ponder.
Ponder away.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the ancient roots of the Gayatri Mantra to its surprising pop culture cameos and those potential cognitive benefits.
We've been all over the place.
But we are not done yet.
You know, it's amazing how one sound, a mantra that's been chanted for thousands of years, can spark so many different reactions.
Yeah, it's true.
Interpretations.
From ancient rituals to sci-fi to Bollywood,
I know.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But I think our listener might be wondering, okay, so what does this have to do with me?
Right. That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing here is this really cool merging of ancient wisdom and modern science.
It's like science is finally catching up to what spiritual traditions have known all along.
Exactly.
That our minds and bodies, they're not separate.
Right.
They're connected.
And practices that address that can have huge benefits.
It's like we're rediscovering the power of these ancient traditions and realizing that maybe they were onto something.
Maybe they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what we consider valid knowledge, you know?
That's true.
For so long, science has kind of dismissed these practices. Yeah, chanting, meditation, all that.
As lacking evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now we're starting to see those hints that these practices might actually have real, measurable effects.
It's like a whole new frontier of understanding.
It really is.
So this isn't just about the Gayatri Mantra.
No.
It's about being open to things that might seem unconventional.
Right.
But could actually really improve our lives.
It's about recognizing that we still have so much to learn about the human mind.
About ancient traditions.
Exactly.
Maybe we've been overlooking some valuable tools for well-being.
Absolutely. Just because they don't fit into our current scientific models.
Right.
Who knows what else is out there?
Now that is a thought-provoking question.
It is.
Speaking of thought-provoking questions.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that there are many Gayatri mantras.
Oh, yeah.
Not just the one.
A whole family of them.
So how do these other mantras differ from the classic one?
Well, they all have a similar structure and rhythm.
Okay.
But each Gayatri mantra, it's dedicated to a specific deity.
Right.
And carries its own vibration, intention.
So like a whole chorus of Gayatri mantras,
Exactly.
each with its own like...
flavor.
Yeah, its own flavor of spiritual connection.
Yeah, I like that.
Do these other mantras also have those potential cognitive benefits?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And one that needs more research.
Of course.
Most studies have focused on the classic Gayatri mantra.
Right.
But it's definitely possible that other mantras could have their own unique effects.
It's like a whole world of sonic healing and cognitive enhancement
Right.
just waiting to be discovered.
Waiting to be unlocked.
But we have to, unfortunately, bring this deep dive to a close.
I know, time flies.
But before we do, any parting words of wisdom for our listener?
Okay, here's something to think about.
All right.
If chanting, something so ancient, can have such a big impact on our modern minds, what other practices from the past might hold untapped potential?
Are we talking like ancient scrolls and herbal remedies?
Could be anything.
Ooh, I like it.
The point is, be curious. Look beyond what's familiar.
Yeah.
Realize that wisdom isn't always found in a lab.
It's about bridging that gap between what we think we know and what we might discover if we're just open to the possibilities. So listener, what ancient practices spark your curiosity?
What hidden wisdom are you ready to uncover?
I love it.
Keep exploring. Keep questioning.
Yeah.
Keep diving deep.
And until next time, happy learning. What a great challenge. I don't know about you, but I'm already thinking about all the ancient stuff I want to learn more about.
I know, right?
Maybe it's finally time to learn how to read hieroglyphics.
Why not?
Or try making some herbal remedies.
It's funny you should mention herbal remedies.
Oh, yeah.
It really struck me while we were researching this.
Okay.
How the Gayatri Mantra kind of highlights
the
connections between all these different fields.
It's true.
You talked about spirituality and science, music.
Pop culture, even.
And somehow it all ties together.
Yeah. It's like the Gayatri Mantra is this lens, you know,
Yeah.
to see how everything's connected.
That's a great way to put it.
And maybe that's part of its power.
Maybe.
Reminding us that we're not just individuals.
Right. But part of this huge web of knowledge
And history.
culture,
Exactly.
it's pretty profound when you think about it.
It really is.
So I think that's a really valuable takeaway
Definitely.
from this deep dive.
Whether you decide to chant the mantra or not,
Right.
the real lesson is to be curious, open to new ideas,
Yeah.
and never stop exploring.
Never stop exploring. I love it. But before we wrap up,
Okay.
I got to ask,
Yeah.
if you had to pick just one ancient practice to explore further,
Ooh, that's tough.
something with, untapped potential for well-being.
Okay. I think I would dive into ancient dance rituals.
Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting. Why dance?
There's just something so powerful
Yeah.
about how people have used movement and rhythm to connect with themselves and the world.
For a really, really long time.
Yeah, like for centuries. I think there's so much we can learn from that.
I can already picture myself doing some interpretive dance in my living room,
I love it.
trying to channel ancient wisdom.
Eh.
Maybe that's our next deep dive.
Maybe it is. But until then,
Until then,
we encourage you, dear listener,
yes, dear listener,
to keep exploring, keep questioning.
keep diving deep.
And on that note, that wraps up our depth dive into the Gayatri Mantra.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope you learned something new, and we'll see you next time
See you then.
for another deep dive.